So thank you for your time. Pandit Sharma, can you tell us about what is your assessment of uh, all the debate about the caste system that's happening right now in the US? Several universities you have seen, Seattle City Council, and now the California State Assembly have passed resolution. What level of caste-based discrimination is happening in the US? What is your point of view?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to share some thoughts with you. I think there are two aspects which are important to note. One is it's increasing. We've had no mention of caste discrimination in this country for the best part of 70 years, whilst American Indians have been in this country. And all of a sudden, it seems to be increasing, it's proliferating. If you look at that trend, you'll see that it matches clearly the same trend of Indian Americans becoming prosperous here in this country, Hindus particularly, and also India as a nation and Hindus, the indigenous people of India, also becoming economically prosperous. Those are not coincidences. The rise of the nation of Bharat and also the rise of the American Hindus presents some sort of a civilizational threat to the status quo. And when I studied this, it became apparent to me there are two aspects to this. One is as the voice of India starts to talk about its true history, all of a sudden it uncovers an inconvenient dimension of that history. Suddenly we see the evidence for the atrocities that were perpetrated by two waves of colonizers. And both of those colonizers established very significant global power structures as a result of their colonization activities. And then they concealed them. The British were masters at this. They created a commonwealth, which is, okay, let's forget the fact that we stole from all these nations. Let's all be friends now and look to the future. And yet the Commonwealth is also beginning to creak now as people say, well, we don't like being under the patronizing hand of our former colonizers. So there is a threat there. And we're seeing this in the political sphere, we're seeing it in the educational sphere, and we're seeing it in the religious sphere. So I'm fairly confident this is going to increase. Caste is one of those tools which was used to try and divide Bharat. It was seeded with an intention to forever cause friction points and to cause conflict, which could be, shall we say, ignited with the slightest remark. That's what it was created for. And then we saw that it was enshrined in the consciousness of the land and also into law. And so every single moment is a moment for this trope to rear its head and be taken advantage of by those who want to harm Hindus and India. And here in the US, it's happening increasingly on a daily basis.
Who are behind this?
So there are the usual suspects. And if we have a look at the people who are very active here in the United States, they're not from the Hindu fold. They don't identify as being parts of the Hindu civilization. They have allegiances to ideologies which are not indigenous to Bharat. Some of them are communists, some of them extreme left socialists. Others are associated and aligned with religious ideologies, which are, they find Bharat's ideologies are a real and present danger to them. And it's those voices who are now speaking the loudest. Clearly they're funded, and the funding sources can be traced to the same sort of groups. The same groups who will thrive on conflict and chaos in India are funding activities to cause social unrest.
Can you be a bit more specific who those groups are?
Well,
Is it a country or a non-state actor?
well, if we have a look at the situation here in the US, there is one organization called Equality Labs. And if you delve into it, you find that it's actually, although it presents itself as a not-for-profit, it's a fully for-profit. If you look at their funding sources, you will find that there are organizations who have clearly established a position and individuals who've clearly established a position which is antithetical to India's success. Foundations such as the Soros Group and their sources. We have the Omidyar group who have given them a great deal of funds. And these are groups with established positions against Bharat and against Hindus.
Is someone also again behind them who are trying to give them the money, and what's the purpose for that? Soros Group or
Yeah, well, as far as that's, and there is actually a body of established literature
Okay.
which has traced their funding routes and funding sources. Here in the US, if it's a for-profit organization, they have to reveal their sources. And so there are published results which identify exactly what they are. And the profile is very much the same. They tend to be companies or individuals invested in hindering the rise of India, and if nothing else, tarnishing its reputation at every opportunity.
So, what is going to benefit out of it if the India's image is tarnished, if the rise of Indian Americans is stopped? Because both is benefiting at least the United States, and uh,
I think,
you see recently Prime Minister came here. This huge welcome is benefit. The relationship will benefit in the US as well.
mm,
India-US relationship will benefit. So,
mm,
what do you
mm.
think? Why this is being done, and who is going to benefit?
Well, there are many aspects. Edward
Right,
Kissinger's words
right.
ring true to me. He said that being an enemy of America is dangerous, but being a friend of America can be fatal. And so there are groups who have got very well established power and finance structures who are very concerned about the shift in the power politics of the world. I remember when UPI began to increase, all of a sudden the noises that were coming from Visa, MasterCard, companies who had planned on enjoying the benefits of trillions of dollars of revenue were suddenly completely isolated. The carpet was taken out from underneath them. That cost has run into trillions. The fact that India is no longer willing to immediately attach itself to somebody else's political vehicle, to the ambitions of some warmongers, it said, no, we're going to hold our own space, is a new resurgent India, which now has to be factored in to geopolitical forces who never even acknowledged that India was of worth,
Right.
and they're having to face up to these facts. They're also being required to reconcile themselves with the history. You know, I'm very conscious that in 1971, both Britain and the US sent military naval forces to act against India's best interests while Pakistan was at war with India.
True. Uh, if India's rise and rise of Indian diaspora globally is a challenge, a threat, civilizational challenge to them, uh, then help me understand why they have selected caste as first of one of the tools.
So caste is, when you trace it back to where it actually, its genesis in India. In my book, I traced it back to a meeting of missionaries as early as 1844.
And to clarify, caste is not a typical Indian word. It is
No, not at all.
ours is Varna, right?
No, it's not.
It's not Varna.
It's not Varna
Okay,
either. This is the difficulty that I think most people have to face first.
right,
We have concepts which are labeled with words, and they're very clear,
right.
and they're well defined. And then there are these English words which have been conflated and are confused with them, and they're chalk and cheese, they're totally different.
Mm.
Caste has always been a hereditary, hierarchical, endogamous stratification. Varna is not. Varna is more like an aptitude. When you go for an interview with an employer, he is going to try and establish your Varna.
Right.
He wants you to do something that fulfills you,
Mm.
but is going to give him maximum benefit to his society. And it's not hereditary, it's not hierarchical, and it's not endogamous. In one family, if you have a Jyotshi come and do your Janam Patrikas, he will tell you what the Varna of the children are. And the Varna will be totally different according to their aptitude. And I did an empirical study when I was exploring this, and I took 100 people who I knew, and then I started to work through to establish what their aptitudes were. And the match, the correlation, is quite remarkable. I'd invite everybody to have a look and explore it. On our website for the conference, castcon.com,
Right.
we have put a Varna calculator. So whether you're an Eskimo in Alaska or whether you are an Australian Aboriginal, if you know your date and place of birth, you can put it in, and it will say this is what your Varna is, your bodily constitution and your aptitude set, as it was when you were born.
So going back to the same question, sorry for the
Mm.
diversion by because of me. Uh, why they have selected caste as a
Because,
tool?
so they have selected caste for two reasons. One of the reasons is if you want to dominate a society, the society must not be producing full, enlightened, positive, enthusiastic human beings. Individual human beings are so difficult to harness into slavery. If you can have them confused, conflicted, uncertain, um, guilty, or uh, shall we say, consumed by fear, then they're very easy to control. You can make them productive units. Varna doesn't do that. If you align a person's Varna with the work that they do, the person is happy and productive, and their contribution to society is maximized. So you get the evolution of a full human being who will go through Kam, Artha, Dharma, and Moksha and come through a whole existence in that manner. They cannot be made into slaves so easily. If you look at other religious traditions, especially the belief-based ones, they don't like a person to be fully enlightened either in intellect or in emotion. And so they always diminish a human being. They're always talking about guilt, original sin, something Adam apparently did tens of thousands of millions of years ago, but you're responsible for it. You
So
know,
this is one
these are
point.
terrible things.
What are the others?
And so the second aspect is that if you have a Varna-based system, then what it does is it teaches a human being what they are, not what people are telling you. You have an individual unfoldment. You start to explore what you are as opposed to what people are telling you you are. And that again leads to a group of people who are very difficult to control. Imagine if the West, especially the Euro-Christian West, which is built on the notion of telling people that they're guilty, that they are sinners by birth, right? That they have to repay some sort of original sin. Imagine if those people start to feel, actually, no, I'm a divine being. I'm divinely feminine if I'm a woman, I'm divinely masculine if I'm a woman, and I'm here in a wonderful place and I have no ancestral guilt. You lose the control of the whole of the society. And the largest multinational corporations are the churches. The Roman Catholic Church is the largest body, and it survives on the notion that it has a remedy to your individual sin. Pay me 10% of your salary every year, and I will have some sort of help for you to overcome this terrible guilt that you feel, this doubt that you feel. And come every Sunday to my institution where I can reinforce the beliefs that I've put into your thinking. It was Goethe who said, "None are so hopelessly enslaved as those who falsely believe themselves to be free." So if you can enslave an individual intellectually and by their heart, and they don't realize that's been done to them, then you have a slave for life. You can even tell them, a young man, you can tell him, right, go and put on this belt and go and kill yourself and kill a few of those people. You can radicalize people who are succumbing to blind belief. You can't radicalize people who are following a Varna path. They will say, no, no, intellect is important to me, but also my heart is compassionate. I don't buy these beliefs.
Great. Thank you so much.
I hope
Thank
there's something of use.